I'd like to be mindful of everybody's time this evening and call our work session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Davis,
Present.
Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Rawls,
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present, thank you. Okay, we have 3 committees that will share resolutions this evening for discussion. I'll begin with the Administration Committee. We have 3 resolutions this evening. We'll begin with Resolution 7 of 2025. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 7, 2025, a resolution appointing Robert C. Kennick II, Director of Financial Management for the City of Harrisburg, to serve as Dauphin County Tax Collection Committee Delegate for the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Kennick. If you wouldn't mind joining us and pulling that microphone very close to you so we are able to hear you and those viewing are able to hear you.
Testing, testing.
Okay, I think we're good to
good?
go. Yes. Now, I'll reserve an introductory question for the next resolution, but if you wouldn't mind just sharing, stating your name and your role within the city's administration.
Sure. My name is Robert C. Kennick II, and I'm the Finance Director for the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. And Resolution 7 of 2025 is a resolution appointing you to serve as the Dauphin County Tax Collection Committee Delegate for the City of Harrisburg. I will just read some of the resolution here. You would serve as a voting delegate, and I was trying to determine who you replaced or your length of your term, but
That would have been Miss Kelly.
okay. So he's replacing our former Director of Financial Management, Miss Marita Kelly. So just to note, Section 505B of Act 32 requires the governing body of school districts, townships, boroughs, and cities to appoint a voting delegate to represent the entity on the tax collection committee. So I don't have any questions for you. Again, I'll reserve more of my questions for the next resolution. But if you wouldn't mind just sharing what impact you think you would be able to make as a member of the Dauphin County Tax Collection Committee delegate?
For Dauphin County, I've only attended one meeting so far, and from what I was able to observe, they seem to have their ducks pretty much lined up in a row. There seemed to be very little dissension among the ranks. So for the most part, it looks like I would probably just stay the course within the Dauphin County Tax Collection outfit, unless something were to surface here that would cause me to think otherwise.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor to my colleagues who may have some additional questions for you. I'll begin with Councilman Jones. Any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for joining us this evening. I have no questions either. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for being here today. I don't have any questions.
Okay. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. Thank you for being here this evening. Nice of you to come before us. I don't have any questions regarding this resolution. Thank you.
Save them
Thank
for
you.
the next one.
Councilwoman Davis, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. No questions for this resolution. Thank you for being here this evening. I'll save my questions also.
Okay. Thank you. Well, if there are no further questions, I move to add resolutions. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Good
If you
evening.
could just articulate on the record any potential conflicts of interest you might have between whatever your roles are right now and the position you're being appointed to?
I really have no other roles in terms of employment, so I can't see any possibility of any conflict of interest with the city of Harrisburg. I resigned my last position effective December 31st, and that's a long story, which we can get into if you want. Although I did help the owner of the previous company where I worked on New Year's Day. I finished a project I was working for him, but there's been nothing since. So right now, the city of Harrisburg is my only occupation.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. I can't see you, but just to note, Councilwoman Daniels has joined us via Zoom. If there are no further questions, okay, I move to add Resolution 7 of 2025 to our next legislative session agenda for a formal vote. Next, we have Resolution 8 of 2025. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 8, 2025, a resolution confirming the appointment of Mr. Robert C. Kennick II to serve as Director of Financial Management for the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. So now I'd like to ask you if you could please introduce yourself and if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background and how you arrived with the City of Harrisburg.
Sure. Again, my name is Robert C. Kennick II, and I graduated from the University of Maryland with a bachelor's degree and subsequently passed all parts of the Maryland CPA exam on the first attempt. And since then, I have had numerous jobs in industry, the last 5 of which were controllerships in companies ranging in size from, maybe 10 million to 70 million, depending on the company. And the positions lasted anywhere from 3 to 12 years. The ones that only lasted 3 years, there was a good reason, which we can get into if you want, with each specific job. I think you guys do have a copy of my resume, I hope? Okay, good.
Yes, it is Exhibit A attached to the resolution, so we do have a copy of your resume.
As far as what brought me here, my previous employer's business was winding down. It's a privately owned company, and the owner was getting out of the business. And my last official task with 2 members of my team was to try and help him get through the weeds with whatever transactions were to continue after he subsequently sold all the accounts receivable and inventory. He sold the assets of the company to another company, and we worked part-time to try and help him through that transition. And what led me here is that with that job, while I was still working there part-time, I was looking for something in the nonprofit area or the government area simply because it would be something new and challenging to me. Having spent most of my career in manufacturing with a little bit of distribution, I was hoping to branch out and get into different aspects of the accounting scene.
Okay. I don't have any other immediate questions. I guess, maybe one more. Since being hired with the City of Harrisburg, have you established any goals within the department?
The goals so far are for me to try and basically build the team, try and understand, because being a finance director and being an accountant, it's not all about the numbers. It's about building relationships, and those relationships start with my team, and then they branch out to all the different departments within the city that we will be supporting. The goals that I have so far are to try and get the audit completions back on schedule, to make sure that we comply with all of the requirements for the ICA and various government reporting that we have to do under Act 47, and eventually be able to branch out and meet all the department heads and try and see what we can do for them and let them know what they can do for us.
Thank you. I'll now open the floor to my colleagues who may have additional questions. I'll begin with Vice President Green, who serves as our Budget and Finance Committee Chair.
Thank you, President Bowers. Good evening again. I have a few questions for you, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues. I won't try to hog up all the time. The first question, I guess you kind of told us how you chose to get into this field.
Right.
I guess, how did you hear about the job? Like, was it just a Google search, or?
It was on Indeed.
Okay.
It came up on Indeed. And frankly, I applied in September, and when I hadn't heard anything through the end of October, I was kind of disappointed. I thought maybe nothing was going to come to fruition. But then the contact came in November, and then we went through the formal hiring process, and everything went smoothly as far as I know, because I'm here.
All right. Do you have any government experience as far as like working for a government, or has all of your work been in the private sector?
It's all in the private sector. This is the first, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Okay. What's the most number of employees that you've supervised in your previous employment?
Probably 10. Usually it was somewhere between 3 and 6, but probably the most was 10.
Okay. Pretty easy one here for you. Do you live in Harrisburg?
No, I do not live in York.
Do you plan to move to Harrisburg?
Not at this time, no.
I always find it important to make for sure that if someone would leave, the information that they have doesn't just leave with them and leave us starting from the beginning. Do you have a plan on how you would pass on institutional knowledge?
Pass on what, I'm sorry?
Institutional knowledge. If you would learn things or create new standard operating procedures. If you come in and you change everything around and you put things how you want, you hit the lottery tomorrow and decide you're not coming back, how do you make for sure that it continues to run without you?
Well, at this point, I'm still learning how things are working. So at this point, I have not initiated much of anything other than the fact that we were in the process of completing the fuel funds tax report. And in the course of doing that, my biggest question was, why did we wait until January to be able to do a report that covers a whole year's 12 months process? And we were able to find out that we don't have to wait, that we can take the information on a monthly basis as it becomes available, so that when we go to file the annual report in January, 11 months are already done. There's only 1 month to do. So that's about the most significant thing that I've been able to change so far.
Okay. I don't have any more questions at the moment. I'll hand it back to you, President Bowers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. Thank you for being here again this evening. I don't have any questions. I have a couple of comments I like to make. First of all, I love your enthusiasm and looking forward to
thank you.
working and branching out and reaching goals, and your positive attitude and adventure and everything, and helping the members of your team get through the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say thank you for being willing to be here, and you are definitely a positive role model, and I want to
thank you
wish
very
you
much.
luck in
I
your
appreciate that.
new role with your goals and everything, and I hope that you can reach them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Yes, just the same as the last one.
Oh, conflict of interest? No, I don't see where there could be any, because this is the only job that I have. I'm not employed anyplace else. I have no relatives in Harrisburg. As far as I know, I have no relatives in any of the vendors of Harrisburg.
Okay,
Thank you, and that's it for me. Thank you.
thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Good evening. Thank you for being here again tonight and for answering our questions. And you answered one of them by saying, one of my questions were, how do you believe you'd be an asset? as our finance manager here at Harrisburg, but you did say you changed one system with the fuse fund audit, you said, and
So far, yes.
so far, so I believe that's being a great asset so far. My other question was, are you having any trouble adapting or learning the Munis system that we have here at the city?
Not so far. I've gotten limited exposure to the system, and when I get the opportunity, what I try to do is go back and use it on my own and try and hunt and peck my way through, because eventually, obviously, I'm going to have to know that pretty much backwards and forwards.
I agree.
And I don't want to be running to somebody and say, oh, can you show me that again? So I kind of putz through it the best I can. But it seems to have a lot of benefits and a lot of untapped potential. I
Okay.
just don't know if we'll be able to, I don't know how far we'll be able to get to use all the modules it has available.
Mm-hmm. But you're saying you're beginning to navigate it, okay, but
Yes.
trying it out on your,
Mhm.
okay. That was my biggest question, because I know we've adapted to that system and wanted to know how easy or hard it could be for you.
Yeah, well, I kind of have a benefit in not being tied to the old system. One of my previous jobs at H&M Printing and Graphics, they had been stuck with the Hagen system, or not stuck with it, but they've been using the Hagen system for operations for a multitude of years. And the corporate guys came down and said, nope, we're switching you guys over to a combination of PSI for operations and McCullough for accounting. And a cringe went through all the longtime users of Hagen. And long story short, when we got our implementation schedule, because all the divisions of the company were all scheduled to go in order, I went to my boss, who was the president, and I frankly told him, I said, we're not ready. I said, if we do it now, it's going to be a disaster. Can you buy us a couple more months? And he did. And after we did finally do the implementation, I had a customer service rep come after me, and he had been there for 20 years. And he came back and said, thank God you were here, because if you hadn't been here, this really could not have gone well. So I took that as a major compliment.
I would say, yeah.
And for whatever it's worth, we had a sister company who was supposed to go the month after our original date, and their president was hell-bent on hitting the schedule. He did, and they lost. It did not go well.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for answering my questions and for being here, and I appreciate that, and sharing the stories. They help. So thank you. That's it for me.
I got a zillion of them.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I have a few. Once again, thank you for joining us and your willingness to come aboard. What's the largest budget you've been responsible for leading thus far?
Largest was probably about 70 million. That was my last job. I
Any
can't retire.
difficulties with that, disseminating, staying up to it?
No, but frankly, it was a much simpler budget than what the budget is here at the city of Harrisburg.
A lot of line items.
Yeah, a lot of funds, a lot of expense accounts.
What challenges do you foresee, if any, working in a third-class city?
Working in a third-class city?
Yes, sir.
I think the biggest thing is that I'm going to be wanting to try to see, particularly at budget time, when times are tough, how can we get the budget balanced, and what expenses do we have to look at? And again, coming back to some of my experiences in industry, when things got tough, the gavel came down from corporate, and it was even worse than freezing salaries. They would institute, or a couple times, they instituted across-the-board pay cuts for every employee, and it didn't matter what their position was, their seniority, how good a job they were doing. And it's in the back of my mind, and I'm hoping it doesn't come to something like that here, particularly for the police and the fire department. But for those of us who support those guys and the citizens, I don't know. I just hope it does not become a reality that we have to consider that.
Have you had a chance to sit with Mr. Brooks and Mr. McCutcheon at all, or how frequent have you convened with them since you started?
Yes, I meet with them almost every day, at least for part of the day. And we did have an occasion where we had a resignation, and Alex Burstein was promoted into that position that was vacant. And I spent a lot of time with him also because he's going to be an assistant to the whole department. And he is versatile enough that he can swing back and forth. Helped him with the budgets, helped Brian with some of the financial reporting, help Hillary with some of the procurement. So we're really trying to, build him into an all-around kind of guy.
In your opinion, would you say you guys kind of gel well together?
I think so, yes. So far, everything's been going very well.
That's essential, absolutely. That's great to hear. How will you ensure the ICA is included over the budget processes that we have, them being kind of the overseer for Harrisburg City?
For right now, I have to defer that to Brian.
Okay.
But he and I have been in touch. We've been to a couple of meetings together, and I'm familiar with the reports that he's putting out. Frankly, that's one of the things we're going to have to get a backup, somebody else who knows how to do that.
Absolutely.
I'm big on cross-training.
Okay.
And Brian, as the most senior member of the department, is also arguably one of the most valuable and one of the most, I can't say indispensable because nobody's indispensable, but he's probably pretty close to it right now.
Absolutely. And I agree. And then last question. This is a council that, loves information, very proactive in requesting information for the residents. So what will be a way you can expedite information for us, or did they give you kind of a chain of command to send to when council requests for items?
If I get a request directly from you guys?
Yeah, during a session or a hearing, if...
What I would do is try and put it together as quickly as I could.
Okay.
And I would give a copy to Sam. Of course, he's my boss. And, he is in the mayor's area. So if there's any conversation to be had between him and the mayor, that's between them.
Okay.
But I want to get the information back to you guys as quickly as possible. Absolutely.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, any questions?
Yes,
guys
thank
are
you,
going
President
easy on me
Bowers.
So far.
Say it again.
I said you guys are going too easy on me so far.
Well, here comes a hard one. Here comes a hard one. I want to give you a question, and I'm going to preface this with saying that I'm not questioning your integrity, but I'm going to ask a question about integrity. Does that make sense?
Sure.
All right. So you're in a situation I've seen in some of your stories that you gave, the short stories that you gave here thus far. You've seen some issues in some of the places that you worked. If there was something wrong here, if you saw something wrong here, how was your ability to speak truth to power? And if they weren't to answer you, if they were like, hey, just do it this way, how would you react to something like that?
Well, in addition to building relationships, I believe in total transparency. So that if I were to come across something, and we've had a couple of minor issues so far, that I came across things that were about to happen that I wasn't too crazy about. And we aired the dirty laundry, we talked it out, and we were able to come to a resolution.
Thus far, you're saying so far already?
Of course.
Welcome to Harrisburg.
It
so
doesn't
listen,
take long.
no, seriously, that's a question. We just passed a budget, and we've seen some things that weren't right. There was some overspending in some areas, and we questioned when those departments are who was responsible. We really got nothing from that. And there was overspending in the department of about $91,000, and they knew about it in September. We didn't find out until December, which kind of put us in a tough spot.
Is that question still unresolved?
No. I'm just giving you type of examples. Harrisburg has a history of people doing. In your job, I want you to be respectful in your job, but doing what they're told even when something is not right. Integrity is being able to do something, doing the right thing when no one else is looking. So again, just making sure that your ability to speak truth to power when you see something wrong, and if they're not willing to iron it out or deal with it and they're demanding you to just do it, are you willing to walk away? And also let us know.
Well, based on my experience so far, I won. so that didn't happen. But how can I describe that situation without giving it away? I saw a situation that could have caused a severely looking spending overage in the month of January. Now, the department didn't want to show that. And I went to the department and said, look, there's one physical item in that one line item in your budget. So even if you're over budget in January by, say, 20 grand, the obvious question that you're going to be asked is, if you're 20 grand over in January, how far over are you going to be in December? And the answer is 20 grand, because that's the only thing that's in there. And I explained to them, I can run interference. If you don't reallocate the funds or transfer funds from one account to another, I said, we can leave it hit, and I can go to Sam, we can go to the mayor, we can go to the council, and we can answer that question before it even gets asked. And ultimately, it came to a resolution totally different than that, but everything was fine. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, if I see something that's not right, I'm going to try and make it right. And if we can't make it right, then we're going to find somebody at least knowledgeable enough to know that something's not right.
That kind of answers my question.
Kinda.
Yeah, you know, because sometimes people get put in positions, and a lot of times people don't want to speak up because of retaliation or, you know, of not doing what they're told to be doing. So I just wanted to make sure that you won't run in. If you run into something like that, you know, I think our city deserves transparency to the fullest. So
I agree with that. And I think I have an advantage in that I almost don't have anything to lose. The worst that would happen is I'm going to I'll take somebody off. But it's you know, I can't imagine that doing my job would cost me my job. And I think
it can happen.
Oh,
It can happen.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, it can happen. So thank you for answering those questions, man. I hope they weren't too tough, but I just wanted to
I
dig
hope
a
I
little
gave you
bit.
the answers you were looking for. Not that you were looking for, but I hope you gave it complete answers.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
for
I
the
appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for having me again.
No further questions.
Thank you. Are there any other final questions?
Yes, I have a question. I
Yes.
was wondering, when I didn't get a copy of Mr. Kennick's resume, so who was responsible?
It's included
I didn't get it. And
in the
this,
resolution. It's Exhibit A of the
is it in the
resolution.
resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this isn't working again, so this is a problem. This is computers, an ongoing problem. It's ongoing, so I apologize.
Ms.
But
Davis-
it is. You can get me a computer that actually works. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate
Ms.
it.
Davis, if you have any questions subsequent to this meeting, don't hesitate to call me.
I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I move to add Resolution 8 of 2025 to our next legislative session for a formal vote. Before we move forward with Resolution 9 of 2025, I wanted to note for those watching, viewing, Channel 20 is without volume, so if you are watching there and you can't hear anything, I would recommend the YouTube channel. There is volume there, so thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
Thanks. The final resolution for discussion within the Administration Committee is Resolution 9 of 2025. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 9, 2025, a resolution confirming the appointment of Mr. Samuel F. Sokowski to serve as Business Administrator for the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. We are joined by Mr. Sokowski. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Sam Sikorsky. I'm the Business Administrator, Chief of Staff. And I've been in that position since early October 2024.
Thank you.
You want me going longer or not?
I would, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background and how you determined that the city of Harrisburg was a good fit for
Yeah, I'm
you.
I'm a graduate of Indiana University, Pennsylvania, with a bachelor's degree in finance and accounting. I also have a graduate certification from Millersville University in Lancaster County as a certified public manager. I have about 15, 16 years experience in municipal government. All those has been as municipal managers, borough managers, and also city manager in the city of Duquesne. I also spent almost 5 years in county government as an elected county auditor and also as a business manager. I worked for the state of Pennsylvania in a couple of different roles, but primarily with the Department of Labor and with the Unemployment and Compensation Service Center, which was a tough job, especially when people were swearing at you at 7 o'clock in the morning. So where's my money at? So I have, like I said, over 20 years experience. What led me to the job in Harrisburg is I actually had some connections to the city of Harrisburg. I'm friends with the prior financial manager. I think there's actually a letter of recommendation from her in front of you. I also participated in the Lancaster County Solid Waste Management Authority acquisition of the Harrisburg incinerator back in 2013-14 for $130-some million. When I was a county auditor, I was also a member of SACO, which is Pennsylvania State Association of Elected County Officials, and I was a legislative representative for the County Auditors Association. So I work with the Local Government Commission, which is a jointure between the State House and the State Senate to affect legislation. That was 2002, 3, and 4 until my term expired and I had to go get something else. So those are probably my accounting experience. I spent 18 years as a financial advisor also, which I think is important because I worked with individuals, families, and small businesses to do planning for tax planning, retirement planning, estate planning. Also had all my insurance licenses, had securities licenses, Series 6, 7, 63. So I did mutual funds, stocks, bonds, that type of thing. Did that for about 18 years. Had offices in the Allentown, Lehigh Valley area, which I covered all of Eastern PA, including the Harrisburg area itself. So that's pretty much my professional background.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing about your financial advisory experience. I didn't
Thanks for having
really
me, by the way.
glean that from your resume. I have questions. From the resume that you've shared here, it does seem like you have varied municipal experience. Can you speak to some of the boroughs and other city that you've been employed by?
Yeah, I was employed with the Borough of Punxsutawney as the interim borough manager. It was a contractual position until they hired a permanent person, which they did. So I was also prior to that, I was the city manager in Duquesne, and I left there because I got offered the job in Punxsutawney, which is a 12-mile commute instead of a 2-hour commute each way. So it gave me 3.5 hours of my life back with a much shorter commute. They were supposed to do an employment agreement. They didn't do so, and I was going to relocate. And without a contract, I wasn't unable to do that. Prior to that, I was the borough manager in Katanning Borough until they eliminated the position of borough manager. And to this day, they still don't have a borough manager. They went back to a borough secretary form of government, which they've had for all of 3 years of their history. And the last position in this area was actually in Mount Joy in Lancaster County for 4 years. And I had a complete changeover in the borough council, and they basically cleaned house and got rid of about 7 or 8 municipal staff, management staff, including the borough engineer, the codes officer. They got rid of the labor attorney. They got rid of, trying to think of some of the other ones they get rid of. But there was like 6 or 7 positions they basically cleaned house. And that was primarily my fault because I actually did a reapportionment of their wards. So we got all new people elected to council, and ended up having 2 or 3 council people run against each other. So that was sort of something that sort of speeded up that whole process, which is, neither here nor there. Prior to that, I spent time as the borough manager in Columbia. That's where I actually was involved with Loxwama. So I spent a couple of years there until they decided to sell their wastewater treatment plant. And you had to ask the question about what are you willing to do in case something is wrong. I remember actually being in the interview process here in Harrisburg, and they asked me that similar type of question. I said that I had a previous borough, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want to pin it on anybody, but I ended up filing a state ethics complaint because they had ordered me to break the Sunshine Law and some other laws, and I refused to do that. So I think I have a very high level of competence and integrity, so I'm willing to walk away from a job and to do something I don't agree with. So did that answer your question?
I think so. I'm satisfied with the response. My final question is, so the length of time that you stay in these roles, it's some are just for a few months. It looks like the longest may have been 4 years. I think there were 2 that were at least 4-year roles.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that?
Well, first of all, it's the nature of the position. Most municipal management jobs only last for 4 to 6 years. That's just the average. Someone who spends a lot longer period of time is actually an anomaly. It's not the normal thing. And I mean, you're an at-will employee. You could have some philosophical differences that could cause you to go. They could want to bring in their own management staff if the board would change over. Give you an example here. If you have a mayoral election, you got a new mayor coming in next year, that person is probably going to clean house. So, that happens all the time. It's the nature of the job. I accept that, would I like to be someplace for 20 years? Absolutely. But it doesn't always work out that way. So I can honestly tell you, not a single thing I've ever done in my municipal management career that I regret. Nothing I would change. One thing I would probably change, I wouldn't have reapportioned when I did. Probably would have waited till the next census, which was 2 or 3 years later. So I could have got a couple more years out of that particular job. It's a combination of factors. There's not one factor that contributes to maybe leaving a position, but you deal with what you have in the here and the now, and if that requires you to find something else. I mean, there's some jobs I left because I got another job. I left the job in Nanny Globe because I got a job with the state with paying full benefits and retirement and all that. So there were lots of jobs I left because I had gotten another job. So I hope that answered your question.
That was fine, but some you were only there for a few months. But thank you for your responses.
Mm-hmm.
I will now open the floor to my colleagues who may have additional questions for you. I'll begin with Councilman Jones. Any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. She asked a couple of questions that I would have asked. So at this moment, I have no questions.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for joining us this evening, as usual.
No problem.
You had alluded to Ms. Kelly gave you the recommendation for the position.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other candidates in line or waiting, or the recommendation came upon her kind of exiting the city and you kind of fell right into the position?
Other candidates for the position?
For your role, yes.
I can't answer that question. I have no idea.
Okay.
I imagine they probably got lots of resumes, but whether they interviewed anybody else, I can't answer that question. I don't know.
There were several interviews done.
There were, okay.
Yes.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. Good evening, Mr. Sokolsky. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Sorry. Most of my questions were asked too as well. I was also, when I was looking at your resume, wondering why there were, you had stated some places 1 or 2 months, maybe just a year. You have wealth of experience on your resume with the many jobs that you've had. So I too was wondering why it was why you had moved around so much. So my only question that I have for you now would be, what is one significant change you've made to the city as a business administrator so far since you've been here?
A couple of things, actually. I just did a recent review, and it's actually an ongoing process of the procurement policy. Because I found out that a lot of the procurement policies from dates back to 2021, it's online. You can look at it anytime you wish. And a lot of our department heads weren't aware of it or maybe had forgotten about it. So I'm in the process of doing a thorough review of the procurement policy itself. I think one of the important reasons for that is making sure we're abiding by all laws, bidding laws, and so on and so forth. I know the solicitor does a very good job of keeping us legally in line. And secondly, I think it opens up by having a competitive process. You're allowing maybe vendors and hopefully minority vendors possibly to bid on things that they, or at least get involved in participating in getting contracts with the city that normally don't do that. So I think that's a very beneficial thing. Also, when we went through the budget process and the question of ARPA came up, I actually did, and I'm in the process of doing that now, done various staff meetings with applicable departments to find out where they are with the ARPA money, and that's an ongoing thing also. We're also in the process of looking at the police pension and possibly bidding that out. And you should be able to bid things out such as that every few years anyway. So those are probably two or three of the main things we're doing now.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are all the questions I've had.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you, President Powers. Good evening, Mr. Sokowski.
Good evening to you.
A couple of questions for you here. First, how did you hear about the job?
Actually, I saw it on, I think it was either PSAB, which is the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs website, or it was on the Pennsylvania Municipal League. I don't recall exactly which one it was, but it was one of those two websites.
All right. Do you live in Harrisburg?
I do.
Thank you for that. I think it's important for our leadership to live in the city limits, because I think you can understand the unique problems of the city a little better, as well as its assets. Third, looking at your resume, you have had a lot of different roles, some shorter, some longer. As I said with a previous candidate, I think institutional knowledge is important. How would you ensure that institutional knowledge is passed on if you would leave?
I have a lot of practice in, as you mentioned, I left a few positions. I've never had an issue with breaching confidentiality at all. There's things I don't even tell my wife, to tell you the truth, because you're dealing with personal matters, human resource matters, contractual matters, and some of those things aren't for public repeating in the public. I also spent many years, and I thank Neil every day for being his office being the right to know law office. I used to do that in the past. I don't mind not doing that. It was one of the jobs I disliked, but I was very good at it. So when you do right to know requests, those they're not fun. So I appreciate him doing that. So being confidential is sort of second nature, because even when you're a financial advisor and you go into a person's house and you leave 2 hours later with a check of $200,000 and you got all their personal financial information, I mean, you don't repeat that kind of stuff. So I think I'm very good at being confidential with information that's personal in nature, and I have no problem doing that.
Okay. I think you answered the question. Next, I guess, what's the biggest difference that you've seen so far between your previous roles and working for the city of Harrisburg?
My previous roles, I'm used to being sort of the chief administrative officer and the chief executive officer, because when you work for a borough, the borough has a very weak mayoral form of government. With a third-class city, it's not that way. It's actually a mayor-council form of government. So the mayor serves as the chief executive officer. I'm more of the chief administrative officer. So I'm used to having the dual roles. I'm also used to wearing 4 or 5 hats. So So not only are you the right to know officer, but you're the HIPAA officer, the human resource director. So I think the biggest difference is you're able to specialize a little bit more here because you have other departments that are able to do things. So I guess I've been learning more how to delegate again than anything else.
All right, and how are you adjusting to that?
Um,
Delegating more.
I like delegating, actually. So, and the biggest thing is you have to know where to find information. If you have an issue or question, there was something that came up at the last council meeting. I was actually able to go to the right people, get answers within less than 24 hours, and I think those people were satisfied with the responses that they got. But I've been in government itself since 2020. So it's been more than 20 years. And I started off as an auditor. So when you're an auditor, you're looking at every single department within a government structure. And you're also, looking over 37 tax collectors, and you're looking over district justices' offices. If you have a county nursing home, you got to do that. You have a county airport, you have to look at that. So by being an auditor, you get to learn all the ins and outs of what a government is. So I think I have a long history of being, the broad width of a government structure. So I have no problem knowing where to get answers. And also working for the state, working for the county, working for a municipality, I know who should be doing what. And so if someone calls and asks the question, I can refer them to the appropriate agency. And I'm also very good at developing good working relationships with state legislators. I've already met with all three legislators here and the new state senator. So I think that's gone very well, and they've been very helpful with our efforts. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Since you've been in the role a little bit of time now, you've been able to go through the budget process, kind of get your feet wet. I guess, what are some of your goals in your role?
So continuing to work on the ARPA. I think doing the police pension, and then I'll probably later look at maybe the other pensions funds, but you can't do everything all at one time. I think looking at the pilot agreements that we have, there's 60% of our real estate property being tax exempt. Most of that belong to the state. I think it needs to be looked at. I think the $5 million that we get as a payment from the state is an underpayment and needs to be addressed urgently. Let's see. Also, the procurement policy, I told you about that already, so I'm not going to mention it again. I think the Governor Square situation, I give Neil a lot of credit for his efforts on that and getting a receivership in place. I think we're making some progress. Don't want to go into a whole lot of details. I think Bob mentioned about the accounting system, unit system. Unfortunately, last year we got delayed about 6 months after Mr. Hartman had left until I started in October. That whole effort sort of froze in place because the two people in charge of that were both vacant positions. So we got it restarted back in November, and we've been meeting on a regular basis since. So and actually talked to Steve Bortner probably last week about it again. So we are making some progress, just not as much progress. I think the Broad Street Market is get that rebuilt. I think that's a good issue, and also the Senator Stadium is also a big issue. And I think the affordable housing issue is also a big issue, and we actually meet on a regular basis especially with the governor's office, to deal with affordable housing. So I think those are probably the big issues that need to be addressed this year.
All right, thank you. And then the last one is more of a comment. I look forward to continuing to work with you. I will say, working with previous business administrators, one of the things that made them the most successful was ensuring communication between the administration, but also with council, making sure we're informed and updated with what's going on. This isn't our full-time job, but we still have a lot of communication and connection with the residents. So we're a liaison to getting that information out, and we make a lot of important decisions here. So keeping us informed and in the loop is very important to make for sure we have a successful city. Also, follow-up when we reach out or when residents reach out, making sure you have that follow-up and a good follow-up time always makes everything run a little smoother. And then just balancing priorities, because I know in your office, you kind of get priorities from every department as well as residents, council, administration. So balancing those priorities and following up on that. If you can do those three things, I think that you could be very successful in the job, so.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate your comments. Agree with everything you said. And I have made overtures to the council itself to improve communication, and look forward to continue doing that.
Okay. Councilwoman Davis, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. Vice President Green asked the questions that I was going to ask in terms of any additional goals, and you did elaborate on other questions that I was going to ask. So thank you very much for being here, and I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
So thank you.
If you think anything later, let me know.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Yes, just the same question I asked the other appointee. Do you have any conflicts of interest or any issues that you could see impacting your ability to carry out the work?
No, I don't see, expect to have any kind of problem like that, no.
Thank you. Are there any other final questions? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I move to add Resolution 9 of 2025 to our next legislative session agenda for a formal vote. This concludes the work of the Administration Committee. We will now move to the Public Safety Committee. I will defer to our Public Safety Committee Chair, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, President Bowers. I think we have DC Young and Commissioner Carter to discuss Resolution 6 of 2025. Mr. Truesdale, can you please read it into the record?
Resolution 6, 2025, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with WCA Public Safety Assessments for the purpose of providing psychological testing and assessment for the city's Bureau of Police.
Thank you. Gentlemen, introduce yourself. Even though I did that, but I'll let you do it for the record.
All right, thank you, sir. Deputy Chief Young, thank you for having us.
Thomas Carter, Commissioner. I've been here for 38 years. Probably longer than what you guys have been living.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. No.
Was to break the ice.
Yeah. This is a good one. I'll be 50 on the 27th. So, can you just give us a brief overview? From my understanding, this is a long-standing contract that's just looking to renew. So for our viewers and listeners, can you just give a quick overview of what this resolution is, far as pertaining to pretrial psychological evals? Pre-hire, I'm sorry.
Gotcha. So, yeah, we're required at certain stages, hiring process would be one, to have psychological evaluations completed on anybody we hire new. We also use the psychological services for a couple other different reasons, but this would allow us to enter into that agreement, and we have done. We started with Dr. Laguna years ago, and I can't tell you exactly when that was. But Dr. Laguna sort of kind of went into business with WCA, and now they became the one of few people in this area that we found that are able to provide these services to us.
Okay, got anything, Commissioner? Good. All right, yeah, for me, this is pretty clean cut and clear. Something that was already standing for years, so I really don't have any questions, and I will open the floor up for my colleagues, and starting to my immediate right with Councilman Rodriguez.
I have no question. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Rawls.
Good evening to you both. Thank you for being here. I don't have any questions. I was just going to say, for the public who may not be able to see this resolution or may have questions in their own head about exactly what it is, it's basically, and tell me if I'm wrong, like if an officer fires his weapon or something happens on the job, they will go to these have these psychology testing services or counseling services as a proactive or kind of reactive way to discuss what happened. Would that be correct?
That would be part of it, yes, but we're also, when we hire people and they go through the hiring process, that would be another one. We're required to have a psychological review, complete a violation psychologist. So that would be another one. You also have, and we're like everyone else, so you also have those times where people aren't right. This gives us the ability, if they're not able to do their job, they're not up to their standards, gives us the ability or avenue to see what that is with professional services. So there's a whole list. If you look, it's towards the back. He provides a whole list of services.
Yes, I did see it. I just didn't know if anyone who was listening or public or anyone who was here who can't get their hands on the resolution, just to make sure they understood exactly how these services would work. If they're familiar with like SVU and things, when something happens on there, they go and they sometimes have to have services, psychology services or testing done after an incident. So it's kind of like a little bit like that. But also if they're being hired, that's part of it too. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. That was it. I was just clarifying for everybody.
Thank you.
That's it for me.
President Bowers.
SVU is my favorite show, by the way, but I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Vice President Green.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. I think you might have some more residency years on me. And of course, appreciate you living here. I don't have any questions, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Okay, how does the company ensure consistency and reliability in their evaluations across the different officers in the department?
So it depends. I will tell you this: the tests are set.
They could probably answer that better.
Yeah, that's better. But I can tell you they have a set test that they'll give them. So depending on what the situation is, if it's a new hire, they run the same set of tests on that. So and then they're for the most part. I honestly couldn't tell you how the back end of that went. But yeah, and if something else happened, again, there's a test or something they would administer to get that consistency.
How do we know that the tests are unbiased?
That's
Did
an
we know
excellent
that?
question, ma'am. That is an excellent question. This is the new standard of test because the old test, they found that they were biased. And so, you know, the think tank came up with a new way of asking questions and to test people on different subject matters. You know, we get fitness for duty. We get tests when, you know, if we get into a shooting with somebody, you know, any traumatic incident that a police officer runs into, we send them for like tests. And these here tests are proven to be the best thing for right now. But as you know, like a computer, just like you were complaining about Dell, I hate Dell products. But anyway, you know, just like that, you know, tests get better through time. And the test that we give is a police standard test that the state police give and every other police agency takes. That answers that question.
So we really don't know. You're saying that it is unbiased now. The tests prior were, okay, they were biased.
The pre-hire test is prescribed by the Police Chiefs Association. That we have to use the one that they dictate.
Okay. And then the support, there is support that's provided for officers who might need to improve based on their results of testing.
Yes.
There's support for them. Okay. But what skills and qualities are these assessing for? Just out of curiosity, what are they testing for?
So on a new hire.
On a new hire.
Okay, so I mean we got that one, but it may be any number of problems. You may I'm not gonna try to get too deep into the woods
No,
with this.
no, too deep.
But it may be a number of problems. I mean, we may have an officer-involved shooting. Obviously, there's a standard that does that. Act 59 covers that and how that evaluation's done. You may have some personal issues you're dealing with that are basically affecting how you're working. So obviously, we want the officers to be mentally prepared to be out there.
Right.
It becomes a safe environment for
Right.
everybody. So and when we notice something like that's not right, obviously we need to turn to somebody. And this is, I mean, the psychologists and the tests that they run
Okay.
and the evaluations that they do.
So they can also assess if there's some mental illness or some
Correct.
mental problems going on with the
Correct.
officer. Okay. Well,
And
that's
and
good to know.
the commissioner alluded to it. I mean, they'll do a fitness for duty. And I mean, if they're not fit for duty based on a psychological evaluation, then they don't go back out on the street.
Okay. Well, that's important. Thank you. That's it for me.
Councilwoman Daniels.
No questions on this contract, but while the Commissioner Carter is here, would you mind addressing questions about cooperation with immigration enforcement in the city? What's happening with the city, with Harrisburg's police department and that relationship?
We have no control over the federal government. We have no control over ICE. We cannot stop ICE from doing their jobs. We have not teamed with ICE that I know of to extract anybody from their homes, but I understand that ICE has been through the city.
Is that something all of the police officers in the department are aware of in terms of like is that a policy or is that just kind of a practice?
It's not a policy, but it's a conversation I had with the supervisory staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilwoman Daniels. Anyone else have any other questions before? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. That will conclude the Resolution 6 for 2025. I apologize. And I will ask that this be moved to our next legislative session for vote.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final committee business this evening lies with the Public Works Committee. I will defer to our Public Works Committee Chair, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. All right, today for the Public Works Committee, we'll be discussing Resolution 10 of 2025. Mr. Truesdale, do you mind reading in Resolution 10 of 2025?
Resolution 10, 2025, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Harrisburg reestablishing Hotspot Saturdays, a community beautification and public safety initiative designed to encourage city residents to participate in 6 community cleanup events throughout the summer of 2025.
And I just want to thank council and the city as whole. In the past 3 years, this initiative has really just took on a life as its own. Keep Dauphin County Beautiful actually recognized the volunteers group and recommended Keep PA Beautiful give the volunteer group an award, and they just won a cleanup award for the 30 out of the 150 tons that the group removed. So congratulations to council and the city of Harrisburg. We have an award-winning blight mitigation, initiative. So it's phenomenal. But the metrics, as we talked about towards the end of the year, we were able to remove 150 tons of waste on the bill of La Shawarma. So 3.5 years ago, I met with some of the directors of La Shawarma and just wanted to, keep those promises we've made and, try to mitigate blight, try to curb some of the illegal dumping happening. And for keeping a volunteer base over the past 3 years with the support of council, we've been able to eliminate 150 tons in 18 days. And we look forward to kicking some more butt this season. And we will kick it off in April 19th in Ethel Alley, May 10th, Midtown, June 14th in the Uptown area, July 26th, that is in the North Harrisburg area, 823 in Allison Hill, and 913 in the South Side. So once again, this is an initiative that I drafted, City Council supports, and it is the City of Harrisburg's initiative. So I encourage everyone to come, but we were benefited and blessed with a great award for that initiative. And I do have a brief video to show council with just some of the things that happened. CRW jumped on as a sponsor, as well as many great entities.
An effort to get rid of trash on the streets has returned to Harrisburg.
We're out here doing a litter cleanup in Midtown. It's important to our water systems because all of our sewers, in one way or another, connect to our natural water systems, either a little stream, the Susquehanna River, Paxton Creek, and all of those waterways eventually flow to the ocean. The Susquehanna River goes directly to the Chesapeake Bay, which goes directly into the ocean. So anything that you throw on the ground here, when it's carried by stormwater, can be carried into a storm drain, an inlet, and then make it into the river. And not only can it threaten local wildlife and recreators, visitors, tourists, but it also can go downstream. And you've all seen the videos of a turtle with a straw in its nose or a duck with a six-pack ring around its throat. That all could happen. Something you could throw on the floor in Harrisburg could end up around a piece of wildlife. So we encourage people not to litter. It protects our local waterways, it protects our sewer system, it prevents flood backups, clogs, things like that. We really appreciate the partnership, and we look forward to doing more in different neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Thank you. You say it's nice, OG. What part of it's nice? What part of it's nice?
Everything. Kids helping out the community.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. So, keep them out of trouble. Keep them out of trouble.
So for those that saying that no one's doing this, is that true?
No, well, now they know. This is the witness right here. They are doing it.
Yep.
Right
Yep.
Councilman Rodriguez, and I really see what we're doing with this as in partnership with the hotspots, and couldn't be more thrilled just to team up, collaborate, and work together for the good of the city.
And that's the conclusion of the brief video, just to kind of catch everyone up on what it is that we do out there. So get the school board involved, get the district involved. I love to see more out there. But with that being said, we announced the dates for the 2025 season. The award, which is completely separate than any member of council or city, just have to put that out there as a preface it. And, you know, anyone that wants to take involved, once again, April 19th, May 10th, June 14th, July 26th, we have August 23rd and September 13th. And with that being said, I'll open up the floor just for any questions. Oh, and just for council's edification, our old director of communications from La Shawarma actually have left her role, and I've been in touch with the new directors for La Shawarma, and they're just as excited, if not even more. So we have full support. And once again, I had just sent Mr. Truesdale and said the waiver for 25, Harrisburg City is not responsible for the tilling fees, which is a huge discount when we do our cleanup. So saving on manpower, labor, amongst many other things. I'll open up the floor with Councilwoman Daniels. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis, any questions?
No questions, just a comment to say thank you for all you do. It really looks fun out there, you know, everybody getting involved, teamwork, cleaning up the community. I love it. It's fun. This is why I got involved, to make our community a better place. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for all you do, Councilman
Thank
Rodriguez.
you for that. I didn't add like when we eat, it's fun too. But
I know that's fun too. That's the best part.
Councilwoman Green.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions, just a comment. Thank you for leading this charge. It's always something that's good for the city, for the residents, and just getting people involved, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Madam President.
Thank you for your leadership. And how can people sign up to participate in all of the dates, some of the dates? How is the sign up? What is the sign up process?
Thank you. Great question. They could reach directly out to R. Rodriguez at harrisburgpa.gov or call our great clerk's office and talk to Mr. Truesdale. We'll get them the brief waiver, just very minimum like any other city initiative, just in case someone, falls, that liability is covered. But very brief waiver, and they can just join us on any cleanup day. We usually run from 10 to 12 every cleanup day.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. I don't have any questions, just also thank you for leading this charge and for the visionary thought that you have for Hotspot Saturdays and helping continue to make Harrisburg beautiful. So thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
And Councilman Jones.
Yes. So you said, how much are we paying? No. Thank you for your service, and I think this is a great idea to have volunteers, and that shows that they're not getting paid. That also shows their commitment to making sure and ensuring that our community is staying as clean as possible. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. And if there are no further questions, anyone, before we move forward? If not, I move to add Resolution 10 of 2025 to our next legislative session, and that concludes the work of the Public Works Committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We will now open the floor for public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. Please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live within the city. You'll have 4 minutes to share your comments. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. I'll begin to my right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment?
So my comments have kind of changed from what they were before. It's curious. My name is Brandon Basom, 3rd Street, Uptown. Usually I'm here to talk about street safety, and I still want to say that State Street still hasn't been acted on in years now. But to get to my other point, Commissioner Carter had said that there is no agreement between ICE and the Harrisburg Police. However, there are videos of Harrisburg Police escorting and walking with ICE, like through parts of Harrisburg. So my question was going to be, is there an MOU or an understanding? Now, what I want to ask is, can we have a policy where Harrisburg Police do not assist ICE in their activities in the city for various reasons? One of the main ones is it makes us less safe as a city. You're taking a group of people who will now be afraid to talk to the city, come for services, report crimes, because they'll be afraid that the Harrisburg Police will turn them over to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Let me see, what else do I have? Sorry. I also think it's a poor use of resources. We keep hearing about how the police are understaffed and can't even get their essential jobs done, but now we're doing federal work, which honestly we have no business doing. We're not in the business of, checking people's legal citizenship status. Let me see. It also intimidates citizens who aren't recent immigrants, but may seem like them, who might be Spanish speaking, who might be up in our single bicycle. I mean, we have Afghan refugees, we have all sorts of recent immigrants, people who are their families long-standing, and they get swept up in these things just as quickly. People don't feel safe coming to us for services, knowing that that's a place where ICE could hit. And I mean, we know our rights, we know we can deny them access without a warrant, but the chilling effect is terrible. Like our city businesses, a lot of the like ethnic groceries lose business because people know that they can be targeted. So I'm going to say, like I said, to end it, honestly, like I said, I was going to ask and try to get information about an agreement, but now I ask that hopefully health and safety or public safety take some steps to make sure that our police do not cooperate, any of them. And if Carter wasn't aware of it, and if other supervisors were, we need to make sure they all know that that's a thing that we can't accept as a city. Thank you.
If I may, President Bowers.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. So I'll just make my stance here. Right now, I do not support any of that, them coming in and taking people out and getting there. And I wouldn't like to see our resources used in that capacity either. However, me as a public safety chair, I don't have enforcement powers for the police, so that would be something that will have to come from administration. But it doesn't. I will have to talk with legal to see if there's something that we could put on paper to make sure, at least have a stance on that. And, that would take everybody's involvement in it. I'm just giving you mine on record that I don't support what's happening with people getting taken out of our community. All right?
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my right that would like to offer public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing no one. Anyone in the middle section? Okay, seeing and hearing no one. Anyone to my left? Seeing and hearing no one, the time is 6:45 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.